Number 10. We're starting off strong with the Devil Made Me Do It case. If you're a fan of Ed and Lorraine, you know this one. The Devil Made Me Do It case is arguably one of the most famous cases that Ed and Lorraine ever worked on. But beyond the supernatural, this case was right in the public eye. Not only were there demons in the supernatural, but the scrutiny of the public eye made this a whole different monster for the Warrens. A bunch of people outside of the courthouse making claims and threats over the case isn't easy to deal with. When 19-year-old Arn Cheyenne Johnson took the life of his landlord and blamed it on the devil, Ed and Lorraine jumped to his defense. They were convinced a demon had entered him after he tried to save his brother from a vicious possession a year earlier. His younger brother was possessed by 43 demons, and Arn commanded that they leave him and enter him instead. The Warrens fell under immense scrutiny, but according to them, the court had defended accounts of God in the past. Now it was time to defend accounts of the devil. But one thing remains strange to me. Arn was never exorcised after the event. Does that mean they are still with him? Number 9. Highgate Cemetery. Where were they for the vampire hysteria at Highgate Cemetery? Like, where were you? When I learned about this case, I was flabbergasted, and it's weird to me that they weren't there. They've dealt with werewolves but missed out on vampires completely? The Highgate Cemetery in London, England has some of the oldest graves in the world, making it the perfect breeding ground for ghosts, ghouls, goblins, and vampires. Ooh, it's spooky season. The Highgate vampire case caused a media uproar in the 60s that culminated in two magicians facing off to see who could catch the vampire first. It all started when two girls reported seeing the dead rise from the graves while walking through Swain Lane one night. Soon, animal carcasses drained of blood started turning up. Newspapers had their cameras ready. A massive vampire hunt was organized on Friday, April 13th, in 1973, and bodies were even exhumed from their graves to see if they were toothy. Sadly, no one caught anything, but the case still sends a tingle down the spines of vampire enthusiasts around the world. Legends of the demon, though, continue, along with sightings of a crazed old woman and corpses appearing in places they shouldn't be. Number 8. The Bell Witch. I searched the internet far and wide to see if the Warrens had ever visited the Bell Farm, but alas, no. If I'm wrong and I missed something, post a link down in the comments because I'm not perfect and maybe I missed it. But as far as I can see, they never actually checked out one of the most famous hauntings in the world. 200 years later, the Bell Cave remains an attraction, and many still report hearing a shrill, scratchy voice when no one is around and see orbs surrounding the farm, or where it used to stand. Though the actual events happened well before the time of the Warrens and the farm was torn down, the Bell Cave was still there. If there was any duo who could have proven the tale of the Bell Witch, it was them, but maybe, just maybe, they were afraid of what they might find. Number 7. Michael Taylor. The Michael Taylor case is one of the strangest I've ever come across while doing lists like this, and it certainly needed Ed and Lorraine. The horrifying events of Michael Taylor happened in the 1970s, specifically 1974. A man who was considered a good husband, father, and community man suddenly flipped. He began enduring bouts of severe depression and was visiting a 21-year-old pastor named Marie Robinson for counsel. His wife was obviously suspicious, but the sessions were helping. Mary allegedly performed many exorcisms on him to expel the demons. Taylor's wife was getting pretty antsy, and they ended up having a confrontation during which Taylor attacked his wife. It was after this moment Taylor resolved to undergo a full-blown exorcism on October 5th, 1974. During this, Michael had seizures, he spit and bit the ministers, and screamed in tongues. Unfortunately though, it did not expel all the demons, and Taylor returned home in a rage. He took the life of his wife in an incredibly gruesome way, and was later found screaming in the street, naked and covered in blood. I don't think the Warrens ever encountered anything as violent, but imagine if they did. Number 6. Richard Gallagher and Julia. Richard Gallagher is a man I find entirely fascinating because his transition from being a man of science to a full-on believer of the occult is, for lack of a better word, insane. Now obviously the Warrens had their domain, but imagine if these guys collaborated on this case? What? Though, I don't know if Gallagher needed the help. Just saying. The case I'm referring to is when Gallagher encountered a transformative possession. Gallagher became the go-to guy to diagnose people who claimed to be possessed. An Ivy League psychiatrist, he would help those who were mistaking mental illness for something mystical. Julia was the first time he encountered someone he couldn't explain. Julia was the queen of a satanic cult and had become possessed, which she desperately wanted to be rid of. Skeptical at first, but when Richard sat down to talk to her, she knew intimate details about his life. Objects would fly off the wall, and once during a phone call with the priest, they both heard one of the demonic voices she'd speak in around them, even though Julia was across the country. Number 5, the Thornton Heath poltergeist. It was the 1970s. Thornton Heath, England. Where were the Warrens? Probably busy, or too scared to bother with such a terrifying case. It all started one hot August evening when the family living in the house was awoken by their radio suddenly blaring to life. This was just the beginning to a terrible haunting the family would endure for 4 years. Objects would fall or be thrown across the room by invisible hands, you know, all the usual poltergeisty things. One night, the son awoke to find a man standing at the end of his bed, like staring at him with like venom in his eyes. After a bunch of startling incidents, they tried to have the house blessed, but it failed. However, a medium did discover that the house was haunted by a couple named the Chattertons who considered them trespassers on their property. The family eventually had no other option but to move out, and the activity has since ceased. But imagine if the Warrens were on the case, probably would have been solved so much sooner. Or not, who knows. Number 4, the Danny poltergeist case. In 1998, a woman named Jane Fishman reported strange happenings regarding an antique bed in the home of Al Cobb in Savannah, Georgia. It was a vintage 1800s bed that Cobb bought at auction for his son, a purchase he later regretted. 3 nights after it was purchased, Jason, the son, told his parents that someone was watching him on the bed. He felt cold breath on his neck and saw the impressions of elbows dipping into the pillow. He also noticed the photo of his deceased grandparents lying face down on the dresser, which became a reoccurring event. After he put it back up, it'd fall back out. But then, one morning, an assortment of strange objects, including animals made from shells, was found on his bed after he'd already gone down to breakfast. That got his parents and his twin brother's attention. They left paper and crayons out and asked the ghost what his name was. Then later they came back to see Danny 7 written on the paper. After several communications and a smashed terracotta planter, it was clear that Danny didn't want anyone in his bed. The family eventually got rid of the bed, but that didn't solve the problem. Turns out Jason's connection to the spirits went skin deep, and he continued to see things after the event. Number 3, here we go. The Winchester House. This place is on my bucket list to visit, so it's a wonder to me why the Warrens never checked it out. Again, I googled it, they didn't. Prove me wrong in the comments. I welcome correction, as always. Thank you. But it's essentially a 24,000 square feet mansion with 10,000 windows, 2,000 doors, 160 rooms, 52 skylights, 47 stairways and fireplaces, 17 chimneys, 13 bathrooms, 6 kitchens, and cost Sarah $5 million to build, about $71 million today. There are stairs and doors that lead to nowhere, windows that don't open. It's a labyrinth of mystery. Sarah Winchester and her husband William Winchester amassed a huge fortune from their sale of the, you guessed it, Winchester rifle. After her daughter died of TB and William left Sarah a widow, she consulted a medium who told her that she would constantly be haunted by the spirits killed by the Winchester rifle. The house never stopped construction until she died in 1922. It is said the house was built to trap the spirits inside. Today, it's considered one of the most haunted places in the world and is well worth a visit for anyone seeking a scare. So where the heck were the Warrens to debunk this thing? It would have been awesome. Number 2, the Amityville horror case. Obviously, I had to put this case on the list because this case remained the scariest event of Ed and Lorraine's career.
It had the monstrosities of the night which roamed that house, which infested it, which caused a young man to murder his whole family.
The events at Amityville, Long Island in 1975 shook the nation and the box office. The Lutz family moved into their dream suburban home with optimism and hope for their life. But little did they know, a year earlier, Ronald DeFia Jr. shot and killed all 6 members of his family, priming the property with evil. The Lutzes didn't know what to make of the swarms of flies, loud, aggressive banging noises, disturbing entities, and even levitations occurring in the home. So So they got the hell out of Dodge, leaving all their belongings in the process. When they finally called the Warrens in, George Lutz, the father, who was, by the way, an ex-Marine and karate expert, literally supposed to be fearless, wouldn't even meet them at the house. They met at a Pizza Hut. But as soon as the Warrens began working on the case, they understood why.
The Amityville case affected our personal lives more than any case we ever worked on.
To this day, Lorraine says that this is the case that haunts her the most and said that she hoped this was the closest to hell as she would ever get. So if that's not too scary, I don't know what is. And now we are getting to number 1, the Warrens. Demons, poltergeists, and ghosts. It was hard to find a case that the Warrens wouldn't face. They seemed fearless, their love strong enough to withstand all the forces of darkness, or at least that's how the movies told it. It turns out that the real case the Warrens were too afraid of was the horrifying truth of their marriage. Yup, we're going there. If you're a fan of the movie franchise, then you know that Lorraine had a lot of influence on the stories up until her death, but a weird detail in her contact alludes to some nefarious activity in their personal life. Neither Ed or Lorraine Warren could be depicted violating anyone or performing adult acts with a minor. The reason that was in there might have something to do with the case of Judith Penny. Penny stayed with the Warrens as a young woman and allegedly had an inappropriate relationship with Ed, and Lorraine knew about it. Judith made a legal declaration in November 2014 stating that Penny and Ed had begun an amorous relationship when he was her bus driver and she moved in with them in 1963. That same year, Penny was arrested when someone noticed the illegal relationship between her and Ed. Why she was arrested and not him remains in question to me, but Penny also stated that Ed was a towards Lorraine, saying, and I quote, "Sometimes Ed would actually have to slap her across the face to shut her up. Some nights I thought they were going to kill each other." Lorraine denied the allegations through representatives, and there are still a lot of loose ends, but I suppose whatever happened has already been taken to the grave.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have Elagos. This is a demon of the Gotia, which is a famous grimoire of demonology compiled in the 17th century. According to legend, he is a great duke of hell with a fierce appearance, often depicted as a ghostly knight riding a skeletal winged horse or a dragon. The horse is actually known as the Steel of Abigor and is a minion of hell created from the remains of a horse from the Garden of Eden. Elagos is known for his powers of divination, and he can reveal the past, present, and future to those who summon him. He is also associated with war and battle and is said to be able to command armies and help his summoner achieve victory in conflicts. However, he is not to be taken lightly, as he can be a dangerous adversary to those who oppose him. Despite his fearsome reputation, Elagos has been invoked by many over the centuries, seeking knowledge, power, and protection. Those who wish to summon him should approach with caution and respect, as he is not to be trifled with. In our number 9 spot today, we have Shurgot. Shurgot is a demon who is said to have the power to open all locks and gates. In demonology, he is considered one of the 72 demons of the Gotia, and according to legend, he is able to open any lock or seal, even if it is magically protected. This is of course a terrifying power, but there is a bit of a workaround. It is also believed that he can only open locks that have been closed properly and cannot open locks that have been left open or unlocked. Shurgot really got his rise to fame after his battle with Pope Honorarius III. The Pope had become hyper-focused on the oncoming war against demons and was summoning them purposefully in order to banish them back to hell. Shurgot was the last demon the Pope was able to summon, and for each demon he had written down all of their strengths and weaknesses, but for this one, all he wrote was the power to open all locks. Shurgot is often depicted as a man with the head of a lion or as a lion with wings. He is sometimes also shown holding a key or a set of keys, symbolizing his power over locks and barriers. In some traditions, Shurgot is considered a minor demon, while in others he is considered a very powerful and dangerous spirit. In any case, he is not a demon to be messed with, as his power over locks and gates can be both a blessing and a curse. In our number 8 spot today, we have Burith. Burith is a demon who is often associated with the underworld and is said to be one of the most powerful demons in the infernal hierarchy. He is known to be a demon of knowledge, specifically pertaining to sciences and technologies, as well as an expert in the art of persuasion. He is said to have the ability to make one rich and wise, but at a great cost. Berith is often depicted as a soldier wearing red armor, riding a red horse, and carrying a red staff of some kind. He is known to make pacts and contracts with humans, promising them wealth, knowledge, and power, but in exchange for their soul. In some traditions, he is also said to be the demon responsible for managing the finances of hell, but he's definitely not paying his taxes. That's gotta be a sin, right? Berith is a powerful and dangerous demon, and those who seek to invoke him should do so with extreme caution. It is said that those who make a pact with him are bound to it for all of eternity, and that he will stop at nothing to ensure that his end of the deal is fulfilled. In our number 7 spot today, we have Pazuzu, okay? Famous demon. Pazuzu is likely a demon you've heard of before. After all, this is the name of the demon that possessed Regan in The Exorcist, classic horror film. But the history of Pazuzu goes much further back. Pazuzu is a demonic entity from Mesopotamian mythology known as the King of the Wind Demons. His name is believed to have come from the Akkadian word Pazuzu, meaning he who brings forth the cold wind. Depicted as a fearsome creature with the head of a lion or a dog, wings of an eagle, and a scorpion's tail, Pazuzu was said to be the embodiment of chaos and destruction. Despite his fearsome appearance, Pazuzu was often invoked for protection against evil spirits and other malevolent forces. He was believed to have the power to drive away plagues and diseases, as well as to bring rain and prosperity to the land. In ancient Mesopotamian religion, Pazuzu was also associated with the god of storms and fertility. Despite his terrifying appearance in pop culture, in the more original context, Pazuzu was actually a symbol of protection and a powerful deity that played an important role in the mythology and beliefs of ancient Mesopotamia. In our number 6 spot today, we have Glazia Labalis. This one is a powerful demon with a reputation for divination and imparting knowledge. In demonology, he is classified as a mighty president of hell, ruling over 36 legions of demons. According to legend, he appears as a winged dog or a monstrous creature with the head of a dog and the wings of a griffin. He possesses the ability to see into the past, present, and future, and is known for his ability to reveal secrets and impart knowledge to those who summon him. Despite this reputation as a bringer of knowledge, he is also associated with destruction and chaos. He is believed to incite wars, cause discord, and bring about death and ruin to those who cross his path. In order to summon him, one must follow very specific guidelines and have certain precautions to avoid invoking his anger. Those who seek to work with this demon should approach with caution, as he is known to be very unpredictable and very dangerous. In our number 5 spot today, we have Belphegor. Belphegor is a fallen angel, and after his fall from heaven, he has now become the demon lord presiding over the sin of sloth. It is said that as Belphegor served as a lieutenant from hell, he was sent to Earth on a mission by Satan. While he was on Earth, he grew quite fond of Paris, France, and it is said that because of this affinity, he now lurks deep within the catacombs under the city. Belphegor can be invoked by mortals who are wishing to find fame and wealth, usually through as little effort as possible. But these wishes are of course doomed to fail because of the demon's true mission to lure dreamers into the sin of sloth. Through the failure of whatever was provided to the dreamer by Belphegor, he then draws them into procrastination and idle dreaming rather than the active production, which then of course condemns them to a life of failure. Belphegor is also recognized as one of the 7 great kings who rule over hell. In our number 4 spot today, we have Abaddon. Abaddon is a powerful and mysterious demon often referenced in religious texts and mythologies. In some traditions, he is believed to be the ruler of the abyss, a place of ultimate darkness and suffering. The name Abaddon comes from Hebrew meaning destruction or ruin, which speaks to the demon's destructive nature. He is one of the 7 princes of hell and is often associated with the sin of wrath. It is said that he is responsible for bringing about destruction, plagues, and famine. In some traditions, he is believed to be the angel of death, wielding a powerful scythe and bringing an end to life as we know it. Despite his reputation, some people also view him as a potential ally or guide. In occult practices, he may be invoked for protection, wisdom, or to help overcome obstacles, but whether you view him as a powerful enemy or a very valuable ally, there is no denying that this demon has captured the imaginations of many throughout history, and you should definitely proceed with caution. In our number 3 spot today, we have Astaroth. Astaroth is a powerful and malevolent demon in occult lore, believed to be one of the most prominent demons in hell. Known as the Great Duke of Hell, he is said to command a legion of demons and has the ability to grant knowledge and wealth to those who summon him, but of course, it is at a great cost. In demonology, he is often depicted as a humanoid figure with wings and a crown on his head, holding a serpent in one hand and a scepter in the other. Some believe that he was once an angel who fell from grace and became a demon due to his pride and arrogance. He is often invoked in rituals of black magic and is considered to be a dangerous entity that should only be approached by very experienced practitioners. Those who summon him are said to risk losing their souls to him and becoming trapped in his demonic realm for eternity. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Leviathan. Leviathan is a powerful and fearsome demon in Judeo-Christian mythology. Known as the twisting serpent, Leviathan is often described as a giant sea creature with multiple heads and a body covered in impenetrable scales. According to legend, Leviathan is one of the 7 princes of hell and is a symbol of chaos and destruction. In religious texts, Leviathan is often associated with the power of the ocean and the depths of the abyss. Some people believe that the demon is capable of controlling the weather and causing natural disasters, such as earthquakes and hurricanes, but despite these terrifying tales, some occultists believe that Leviathan can be invoked for protection or to gain power over the natural elements. Summoning Leviathan is a dangerous undertaking though, and it should only be attempted by those who know exactly what they're doing when it comes to the dark arts. Leviathan remains a very popular figure in contemporary horror fiction, where it is often portrayed as a monstrous creature capable of unleashing unspeakable terror upon the world. I'm not gonna lie, still prefer the Meg though, you know? The Meg has my heart. In our number 1 spot today, we have Valifar. Valifar is a demon from the Ars Goetia, and according to the grimoire, Valifar is a very powerful demon who appears as a thief on a horse with a lion's head and the wings of a griffin. There's a lot going on there. Valifar is said to be a master of languages, capable of teaching humans the art of invisibility and skilled in manipulating wealth. Valifar is often associated with temptation and greed, using his abilities to entice humans into a life of luxury and excess, leading them down a path of destruction. He is also known to be deceitful and can twist people's words to his advantage. According to legend, those who summon Valifar must be careful not to show weakness or vulnerability, as he will exploit it to his own benefit. It is said that he can be controlled with a magic ring, but those who try to do so must be prepared to face his cunning and his manipulation.
Number 10, the Keg Mansion in Toronto. This one's for me. I'm so sorry. But here it is. Tell anyone in Toronto that you're going to the Keg Mansion for dinner. Be ready to receive the... You know it's haunted, right? Because they will do that. They will do that. Because it is. I have been there on several occasions and I can verify that heading to the upstairs girls' bathroom alone is a harrowing journey. The haunting goes back all the way to 1915. Before it was the Keg, it was the home of industrialist Hart Massey and his family. Legend has it that the Massey's daughter Lillian passed away and her maid was so distraught over her death that she took her own life. That's one theory. Others say that she committed the act to avoid the dread of her affair with Massey being revealed. Either way, the ghostly image of a maid hanging by the neck has been seen multiple times by employees, I have friends who work there, and guests alike. It's been a keg since the 1970s, and Ed and Lorraine never visited, neither for business or pleasure. There are either 2 reasons for this: they were too busy, or the idea of a ghostly apparition appearing mid-bite didn't sound very appealing to them. How do you like your spirit? Rare or well done? Number 9, the Myrtles Plantation. This 18th century plantation, along with a 600-acre land, carries with it a dark past. Perhaps it's due to the fact that no one was living in it as to why the Warrens never visited, but the haunting itself is pretty terrifying. Though only 1 person was confirmed to have been killed on the property, with the history of slavery surrounding the estate, the number is estimated to be a lot higher, as we can probably guess. One of the most famous ghosts who reportedly walks the ground is that of Chloe. Chloe was a slave who poisoned the birthday cake of the daughters of Clark Woodruff to take a small kind of revenge on her awful masters. She apparently didn't intend for the girls to die, only to fall ill, but alas, they died. When they did, her fellow slaves were so fearful of Woodruff finding out that they hung Chloe for her crimes. This tale has fluctuated over the years, but the verified murder was that of William Drew Winter, who was on his porch and reportedly crawled back into the house, climbed to the 17th step on the stairs in time to die in the arms of his love. Both tales have sparked sightings of spirits on the ground, and in Winter's case, visitors reportedly see and hear bloody footprints crawl to the 17th step and then stop. Had the Warrens visited the property, they could have potentially confirmed what spirits remain restless on the property. But alas, we will never know. Number 7. Los Feliz Mansion. Have you ever entered a room or building that immediately gave you like the heebie-jeebies, like something in your gut was screaming at you that you weren't supposed to be there? Well, that is the exact feeling people encounter when they stand outside this mansion. On the night of December 6, 1959, Dr. Harold Perelson snapped and took the life of his wife and eldest daughter before he took his own. His 2 youngest managed to escape after their eldest sister screamed. He was a successful doctor with a happy family life, so no one knew why this happened. Some blame financial issues after one of his investments failed, but one creepy factor was that a passage from Dante's Divine Comedy was left open on his bedside table like a note. Ever since the event, people report an overwhelming feeling of foreboding that prevents visitors from entering. It was used as a storage unit by a family who purchased it 2 years after the event, but it was never lived in again. Number 6. The Jean Harlow Haunting. It sounds like bad luck followed all those who lived in this home. You may have heard of old Hollywood actress Jean Harlow and her horrendously husband, Paul Byrne. In 1932, Byrne took his own life while standing in front of a mirror, though some believe foul play since the butler who found him called MGM Studios first, not the police. Byrne's ex-girlfriend jumped off a boat to her death days later, so there was some speculation if it was her. Jean moved out, but died later at the ripe age of 26, super young. So as you can tell, that house did not have good vibes. But then, in 1963, Jay Sebring bought the house with his then girlfriend, Sharon Tate. Tate in a couple interviews recounted events in the house that creeped her out, such as the appearance of a short man, probably Byrne, staring at her in the master bedroom. She also saw a shadowy figure hanging with a slit throat in the hallway. Creepier still, Tate and Sebring would later fall victim to the horrendous and horrific Charles Manson massacres. Tate was the same age as Harlow when she died, also a really creepy coincidence. Something dark clung to whoever lived in the house and is still presumed to be haunted to this day. Number 5. 455 Sackett Street. When you think of a haunted house, a specific image appears in your brain. It's either a farmhouse or a mansion, there's really no in between. But you would think we would hear more about haunted apartment buildings since there is a large turnover, which is perhaps why the haunting of 455 Sackett Street didn't get as much attention. This place was riddled with unexplained fires, ominous feelings and sudden drops in temperature, and family tragedies. Everyone who lived there experienced dark things. What with the history of the building being riddled with insidious affairs, mob hits and dealings, and grim attacks, bound to happen. Jane, one of the women who lived there, once had a friend see a little boy in burnt rags staring at her. This event proved even more terrifying as after the woman moved out, the apartment was renovated. Within the walls of her apartment, they found a corpse fitting the above description, tucked inside the walls. So if you are ever in Brooklyn, don't request an in-person viewing. The Warrens never did. Number 4. Hotel Monte Vista. We all know the idea of a place being haunted is enough to lure in guests, but if guests can't even make it through the night, then there's a problem. And they needed the Warrens, but they never showed up. The Hotel Monte Vista opened as a community hotel in 1927, and soon a history of open dens, tragic affairs, mob dealings once again, and secret gambling swelled around the place, as did their paranormal reputation. The hotel has become known for its ghostly sightings, such as in room 220. A long-term boarder had a strange habit of hanging meat from the ceiling in that room. I don't know why the hotel let them do that. And the lodger himself was found dead 3 days after his death. The TV allegedly changes channels on its own, and the sheets have been found torn to shreds. In room 210, the small voice of a bellboy announcing room service can be heard, though no one appears. John Wayne even experienced this. In room 306, the corpses of 2 women of the night were thrown over the balcony. Guests who stay there report feelings of being suffocated by hands while they sleep. Staff are plagued by sounds of infants crying in the basement and have been seen running to escape the sound. The list goes on and on. Perhaps it was more the money machine that kept the Warrens away, but it would have been cool to hear their take on the hauntings. Number 3. Poveglia Island. There There are many reasons why the Warrens never visited this island, the number one being that it's so freaking terrifying it's actually illegal to visit. It's also in Italy, though they traveled all the time, so what's the reason? Poveglia Island plays host to over 160,000 violent deaths, from being a hospice for victims during the bubonic plague, then an asylum run by a mad doctor. The tormented past of the island has no limits. The story of the doctor on the island is the most menacing though. He performed cruel and malicious experiments on his patients, but their souls took revenge on him and allegedly drove him mad. So mad that he tried to throw himself off of the clock tower. And witnesses say that on the night it happened, a mysterious mist consumed the island. Those who decide to take a boat and venture as close as possible to it report hearing screams and moans that chill the bones. Even creepier, people report hearing a bell toll from across the bay, even though it was removed years before. Scientists who have studied the strange happenings of Poveglia have identified an electromagnetic field that surrounds the property, but there's no electricity to the island, so what's the reason? Number 2, the Dandy House. This may have been a job too big for the dynamic duo. A dream home turned nightmare, the Dandies experienced some of the most terrifying encounters since the Bell Witch. I said it. Clara and Phil Dandy lived in this house along with their kids in the 1970s and endured all kinds of encounters, from disembodied voices to footsteps racing around the house. It's a wonder they stayed as long as they did. The creepiest thing I saw described is that once they witnessed strange faces watching them through the windows. When Mr. Dandy ran outside to confront them, first of all, brave dude, badass. Respect, the faces were looking out at him from inside the house. From there things got worse. Some of the things even sounded like aliens. They saw floating white specters and half animal, half human creatures watching them. Objects flew around the room. One lamp barely missed one of their daughters. They involved clergy and Ed and Lorraine to help clear the house, but even they couldn't rid the house of whatever possessed it. In fact, whatever they did made it worse. It got so bad, the Dandies ended up leaving the house after nothing worked. And last but not least, the Mothman in number 1. The legend of the Mothman, alien, angel, or demon. Described as a tall half-man, half-bird like creature with glowing eyes, the Mothman even has skeptics unsure of what to say. The most famous groupings of sightings occurred between November 15th, 1966 to December 15th in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Prophetic in nature, sightings of the creature are often followed by tragic events such as the Silver Bridge disaster. The aforementioned bridge collapsed on December 15th, which coincided with the last sighting of the creature. 46 people passed away, and because sightings ceased after this, people believe he was an angel of death of sorts. More recently, sightings of the Mothman started taking place in 2011 in Chicago. I know the Warrens strictly dealt with demons and possession, but considering how mystifying this whole event was, it would have been interesting to hear what they had to say.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have Purple Mommy. Starting off strong. This was a story that was posted to Reddit by the user Professor_Dog, and they wrote, quote, Purple Mommy. When my son was first learning to talk, he would tell us about something called Purple Mommy. It could be an imaginary friend, but these details are a little bit creepy. Purple Mommy is all purple with long hair and bright white eyes. At the time, he mixed up purple with black, so he could have meant that she was all black. Purple Mommy picks him up at night and turns off the lights. We would often find my son out of his crib in the morning, which would mean him crawling over the railing into the ground at a time when he was barely walking. Definitely found the lights off in his room a few times too, even though he's terrified of the dark. Purple Mommy needs a bandage because she has blood everywhere. Purple Mommy has no smile, meaning that she has no mouth. Purple Mommy can take her head off. Purple Mommy really doesn't like Daddy. He told us all of this stuff for maybe a year or a little more. If we ever asked where she was, he'd always point to the same spot, a corner of the room behind his open closet door. He would also wake up crying almost every night during this time. Once, during a really rough night, my wife went to ask him what's wrong, and his answer was, Purple Mommy won't let me sleep. I'm not gonna lie, Purple Mommy sounds absolutely terrifying. In our number 9 spot today, we have Kelly. This story starts off when someone, who we'll call Marissa, realized that their daughter had an imaginary friend named Kelly. Kelly apparently lived in Marissa's daughter's closet, which sounds kind of creepy, but I guess even imaginary friends need a home, so who am I to judge? Kelly liked to sit in the rocking chair while the daughter did pretty much anything. Sleeping, playing, you know it. Kelly was in the rocking chair. This friendship went on for quite a while, but it eventually faded away as most imaginary friendships do. Flash forward 2 years later and Marissa is watching the new Amityville horror movie with her husband. Marissa's daughter walks into the living room at the exact moment in the movie where the dead girl has completely black eyes, and instead of being absolutely terrified, the daughter looks at the screen and says, "Hey, that's Kelly!" Marissa at this point had totally forgotten about the imaginary friend and said, "Kelly who?" And the daughter replied, "The dead girl that lived in my closet." Maybe Kelly wasn't as imaginary as we all once thought. In our number 8 spot today we have Paris Jarris. Reddit user Biggest Parrot told the internet a story about an imaginary friend her sister had called Paris Jarris. They wrote, quote, "My dad had built her a small playhouse in our backyard where my mom could see her and hear her while she was in the kitchen. My sister would have tea parties and such with her imaginary friend. One day mom heard her say, 'Don't worry, as long as I'm alive, they won't hurt you.' She paused and said, 'Well, if you do that, then I can't help you. It's not nice to kill people.' When my mom asked her what that was about, my sister said, 'Sometimes I have to tell Paris to be a nice person or he can't visit anymore.' I have to ask, what do you even say to that? I mean, I'm glad she knows that Paris Jarris is wrong for that, but I would be absolutely terrified of whatever the hell was going on there." The Reddit user finishes the post by saying, "We moved not long afterwards and she didn't get a new playhouse." Yeah, can't say I blame anyone for that. Hopefully Paris Jarris stayed behind in that house. In our number 7 spot today we have Arlo. One day a couple's young daughter started talking about her new friend Arlo. Arlo was apparently quite funny and the daughter would often tell her parents stories of the things that they would do together. The parents assumed Arlo was a friend from school for a while, but then it came to their attention that there was no Arlo at the girls' school. Okay, so who is Arlo and where did they come from? Flash forward to when the weather started getting warmer and the ice cream man started coming around the neighborhood. The daughter was asking about who this man was and why he was playing music, and the parents just didn't want her to start asking for ice cream 10 times a day, so they told a little white lie. They told her that he was the music man and that he just comes by to play music for everyone. During this time, the pandemic was in full effect, so the family was in lockdown and they weren't seeing anyone else or any other friends. A few weeks go by, and then one day, as the ice cream man comes to the neighborhood, the daughter hears the music, and that's when she looks at her parents and says, "Oh, it's the ice cream man. I know he sells ice cream and that he's not the music man." Apparently, Arlo told her that her parents had lied when they told her that he was the music man. This is when her parents asked her, "Where does Arlo live?" And the daughter replied, "In my closet." In our number 6 spot today we have Jacob. Reddit user Lil Pig Perez shared a story that involved her niece and her imaginary friend during a trip for ice cream. A lot of ice cream references. She wrote, quote, "As I started driving, my niece asks if Jacob, imaginary friend, could get an ice cream too. I jokingly said, 'Jacob can get his own ice cream.' I laughed and said, 'Just kidding, we'll get Jacob an ice cream.' She didn't respond, so I looked in the rear view mirror. I couldn't see very much because it was kind of dark, but what I could see was my niece's face. She looked angry and I was about to reassure her that I was kidding, but I realized that she wasn't looking at me. She was looking at something near my ear, towards the back of my head. Then she said, 'I said no, Jacob, be nice.' No, she didn't mean it. Either that is one terrifying demon of a friend, or this niece has quite an active imagination and a strong desire for extra ice cream." In our number 5 spot today we have Mr. No Face. This story comes from Reddit and was posted by the user Legacy of Potato about their daughter Emma's new friend. When the announcement of this new friend came, Emma explained to her mom that her new friend, who Emma's mom immediately knew was imaginary, was called Mr. No Face. Okay. It's a bit creepy, but not a reason to like freak out. Emma's mom asked a few questions about Mr. No Face, which Emma answered, but then she began to get nervous and quickly shuffled off to her room. Her mom called her back, but Emma just didn't listen, which was extremely unlike her. The next day, Emma's school called and said that the mom needed to set up a meeting to come and talk about Emma. When Emma's mom asked Emma why her school would be calling, Emma insisted that they were making up lies about her, and that she was especially upset that they had apparently told her that Mr. No Face wasn't real. The next day, Emma's mom went to the school to speak with the teacher, and the teacher explained that Emma was exhibiting some strange and disturbing behavior and asked if she had been watching any horror films lately. Emma's mom began to get defensive and asked for more explanations as to what the teacher could possibly be talking about. The teacher said that Emma had been talking to someone named Mr. No Face. Okay, it's an imaginary friend. Kids have those. What could possibly be so bad? The teacher then went on to explain that Emma had been acting out and that she had been drawing some really gory pictures and telling the other students that Mr. No-Face wants their blood. The mother couldn't believe what she was hearing and she raced home to ask Emma about these accusations. When she arrived home, her mother, Emma's grandmother who had been looking after Emma, looked pale white like she had just seen a ghost. Emma's mom ran to the kitchen and it was there that she saw Emma. Emma turned around to face her and her neck was cracking. Once she turned around, Emma's mom saw that her eyes were now pitch black. Emma spoke in a low guttural voice and said, "He wants blood. Yours will be shed." The mother screamed, "Give me my daughter back," and Emma replied, "She's mine." The Redditor ends off the post by saying, if your child has an imaginary friend with no face, run. In our number 4 spot today we have Spider Hands. Posted by the user Not Another Whatever, they wrote, "My sister Ashley used to get visited at night by a dead girl with long dark hair and spider hands. Yes, this predated The Ring. Yes, I'm old AF. She moved out the second she turned 18, never looked back. 20 odd years later, our half-brother Trevor moved into her old room. It wasn't long after Trev started sleeping on the sofa or with the lights on and told us about his new friend that he didn't like. She was a dead girl who had long dark hair, an old nightgown, and spider hands. Needless to say, none of us offered to trade rooms with him. I guess this is less of an imaginary friend story because it seems like no one wanted to be friends with the girl. And honestly, I'm not sure that I could possibly blame them. In our number 3 spot today we have Dawn. Science Nerd 86 posted this story about his daughter and how one day she randomly started talking about a man named Dawn. They wrote, "She always described him in the same way and didn't seem scared at all despite bringing him up every day. She didn't go to daycare and we didn't know anyone named Dawn. Then one day, she got completely freaked out, wouldn't walk around the house alone in case she ran into Dawn, wouldn't sleep in her own room, and would talk about how she hated him because he said mean words to her all the time. About a year after Mean Dawn, we bought a new house. Once we moved, she never spoke of him again. Honestly, while all of that was happening, it would obviously be very concerning and frightening, but perhaps not as frightening as when you realized that she had stopped seeing him after the move. Like a sense of relief, but also a sense of, what the hell just happened? It's almost like a demon confirmation, you know? In our number 2 spot today we have the Bunny Man. This story starts off when our storyteller was looking after some twins. The twins constantly spoke of a man who was in a Easter bunny costume, and they were both absolutely terrified of him. Of course, all the adults really just brushed this off, assuming it was some imaginary person that the boys made up together. One day, while the babysitter was looking after the boys, one of the boys was in the shower while the other one and the babysitter were downstairs watching TV. The one twin watching TV said, "You need to go check on Matt," referring to the twin in the shower. And at the same time, Matt, the one in the shower, began shrieking, "He's in here, he's in here." The babysitter booked it upstairs and had to check every single room before Matt would calm down. Who is this Bunny Man and how are both twins seeing him? And how did the one twin know he was around just seconds before the other one started yelling? All I know is that I feel extremely bad for Matt because a creepy stranger dressed in a bunny costume who appears in the bathroom while you're showering is enough to scare absolutely anyone. In our number 1 spot today we have the Hat Man. This story reads, "When my son was about 3 years old, we were living with my mom in an older apartment. I had always gotten a weird vibe from it. The atmosphere felt heavy and a little oppressive, but I assumed it was just because of the age. However, my son started waking up in the middle of the night and would talk to his friend, who he described as the Hat Man. He would also wake up and tell Hat Man that he didn't want to go play with him because he was supposed to be asleep and that he'd see him tomorrow. This was always followed by him waking me up and asking for a glass of water. I knew it wasn't just an imaginary friend when one night I heard him talking, and when he said he'd see him tomorrow, the door to his room closed on its own. This stopped completely once we moved out. The door closing literally just gives me chills, full-on poltergeist vibes. Moving was definitely a good choice, and I'm glad that the Hat Man stayed behind." Coming in at number 10 we have Annabelle. Bought in an antique shop in 1970, a woman gave a raggedy doll to her daughter, Donna, who was in nursing school. Now let me just say, I had my own Raggedy Ann doll growing up, and it always gave me the chills. Now, Donna and her roommate Angie kept coming home to find the doll in different positions and different locations. Then the doll began leaving them notes reading help. A psychic told them that the doll was possessed by the spirit of a girl named Annabelle who had died at the location location where their apartment complex had been built. But the girl's friend Lou thought there was something more sinister about Annabelle, and she levitated up his body and strangled him until he passed out. The girls then called Ed and Lorraine Warren, who decided the doll was actually a conduit to hell that a demon was using. 2 exorcisms didn't work, and the Warrens took Annabelle home. Now, upon arriving home, Ed and Lorraine placed the doll in Ed's study, and the doll levitated and moved about the house. Even when placed in the locked office in an outer building, the Warrens claimed that she would turn up later inside the house. Finally, the Warrens decided to lock Annabelle up for good, and they had a specially made glass and wood case constructed, upon which they inscribed the Lord's Prayer and St. Michael's Prayer. Then for the rest of his life, Ed would periodically say a binding prayer over the case, ensuring that the sinister spirit and doll remained good and trapped. Number 9. The Devil Made Me Do It. Ed and Lorraine Warren helped exorcise a possessed boy named David Glatzel in the early 80s. David's family had seen him being beaten and choked by invisible hands, and that red marks appeared on his neck afterward. David had started to growl, hiss, speak in otherworldly voices, and recite passages from the Bible as well. Now, they did many exorcisms on David, and Lorraine said that David levitated, ceased breathing for a time, and even demonstrated the supernatural ability of precognition. Now, during his exorcisms, there was also a rocking chair in the room that would allegedly rock on its own, levitate, and even vanish and reappear. David and Lorraine also claimed to have seen the devil sitting in it. Then David's older sister's boyfriend, Arnie, then coerced one of the demons to possess him while participating in David's exorcisms. Afterwards, Arnie's personality changed, and he would fall into a trance-like state where he would growl and hallucinate, but later have no memory of it. Then one day, after his and his girlfriend Debbie's landlord was drunk and misbehaving, Ernie ended his life. The day after the incident, Lorraine informed the Brookfield police that Ernie was possessed when the crime was committed. The case then went to trial, where Ernie's defense was demonic possession and that the devil made me do it. Number 8. The Enfield Poltergeist. The Enfield Poltergeist was a claim of supernatural activity in Enfield, London between 1977 and 1979. The poltergeist activity centered around 2 young sisters, Janet and Margaret Hodgson. In August 1977, single-parent Peggy Hodgson called the Metropolitan Police to her rented home, claiming she had witnessed furniture moving and that 2 of her 4 children heard knocking sounds in the walls. Later claims included disembodied voices, loud noises, thrown toys, overturned chairs, and children levitating. Over a period of 18 months, more than 30 people, including the Hodgson's neighbors, paranormal investigators, and journalists, say they variously saw heavy furniture moving on its own accord, objects being thrown across the room, and the sisters seeming to levitate several feet off the ground. Many have also recorded knocking noises and a gruff voice. Now, Ed and Lorraine Warren went to investigate in 1978 and were convinced that the events had a supernatural explanation. It was during this time that the house of the supposed poltergeist started speaking through Janet. The young girl would often go in a trance-like state where she would speak in a deep, scratchy voice, claiming to be the ghost of a man named Bill Wilkins who had died in the house years before. Now, one of the interactions of Janet levitating was actually caught on camera. Number 7. The Snedeker House. It's important to note that the Snedeker House used to be a former funeral home, so of course it was haunted. The Warrens arrived at the house in 1986 to conduct their investigation. While there, the couple proclaimed that the house was infested with demons. The story begins with Carmen and Alan Snedeker, their 3 sons, their daughter, and 2 nieces moving into a home in Southington, Connecticut. Strange happenings of the house started off fairly innocent, with the mother noticing items around the house going missing. Then the children started talking about seeing strange people in their home, more specifically a man with long black hair. Then the eldest son had a drastic personality change that included violent outbursts. He attacked family members out of nowhere and didn't seem like himself. Now, doctors diagnosed him with schizophrenia, but the family was not convinced. They believed that his strange and terrifying behavior was the result of the environment and the ghost in the home. Ed and Lorraine spent weeks in the home to get the full demonic experience, and after their investigation, they declared that the morticians that had worked in the home when it was a funeral parlor practiced necromancy and had infused the home with a deep evil. The Warrens performed an exorcism on the home to rid of the evil and make it safe for the family to return. Number 6. The Demonic Werewolf. This account is based on a story of Bill Ramsey, a real werewolf in London. Bill first demonstrated demonically possessed behavior at the age of 9. Apparently, he displayed superhuman strength, even managing to rip out a post from its concrete dwellings. He would also try to bite at his family and relatives before having having seizures. In 1983, now a grown man, he admitted himself to an institution after the cravings for blood returned, but when in the hospital, he attacked a nurse and barked like a dog. In 1987, while displaying a wolfish demeanor, he attacked a police officer with superhuman force. It took 6 more officers altogether to restrain the beast. Now, the fiasco led to a mass news coverage, and the Warrens were on point to wrestle the raging mongrel from his wicked soul. After being flown to Connecticut, the wolf demon was exorcised successfully, and Bill has had no issues ever since. Number 5. The Smurl Haunting. The Smurl Haunting is named after Jack and Janet Smurl. They claim that a demon was haunting their home in West Pittenson, Pennsylvania between the years of 1974 and 1989. The demon was alleged to have thrown the family dog into a wall and pushed their daughter down the stairs. The Warrens arrived at the Smurl household in 1986 to conduct their own investigation. Ed described the demonic presence as very powerful and claimed that the entity was able to shake mirrors and move furniture. He claimed to have recorded audio footage of the knocking and rapping sounds caused by the demon as well. Number 4. The Borley Church. The Borley Church is a haunted place of worship that was built in the 12th century and is located in Essex. Crafted during the Norman conquest of 1066, Borley's church is just steps away from fellow paranormal hotspot Borley Rectory and has been the subject of numerous reports, including eerie footsteps, unsettling smells, and spine-tingling apparitions, most notably a solemn nun aimlessly wandering the courtyard. Now, others reported apparitions included a veiled young lady who walks the churchyard grounds before suddenly disappearing, as well as a monk hiding within the church. The organ is said to play by itself, and paranormal investigators claim to have heard ominous, mournful cries and groans coming from the building. Ed himself declared that he had caught an image of the spirit of the monk looking around a book in the church on camera. Number 3. Amityville. One of the most famous haunted houses in the United States is the Dutch Colonial House at 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, New York. The haunting stems from the night of November 13, 1974, when 23-year-old Ronald DeFeo ended the lives of all 6 members of his family. He was arrested, convicted, and given 6 concurrent life sentences. Then in December of 1975, George and Kathy Lutz, along with their 3 children, moved into the house and exclaimed that spooky things were happening. For example, George would wake up at 3:15 every morning, which was the approximate time that Ronald committed his crimes. Kathy said that she would feel a ghostly presence and be embraced by it, and all this and more caused the family to flee in fear after only staying in the house for 28 days. Due to this, Ed and Lorraine visited the house and set up time-lapse infrared cameras and caught a photo of a ghost boy. Now, the picture wasn't made public until 3 years later when George Lutz appeared on the Merv Griffith Show in 1979. Now, believers of the haunting think this is the photo of the ghost of the youngest DeFeo son, John Matthew, who was 9 at the time of the deaths. The Warrens have suggested that the house is occupied by a malevolent spirit due to its history and tried their best to cast them out. Number 2. Cindy McBain. One day, on one of the 15-year-old's many trips to the mall, Cindy McBain found a new shop called the Antique Attic. Wandering around, she was excited to find a battered old Ouija board for sale, which she bought for $5. After getting the board home, Cindy tried it out with her friend Nancy, and during the first session, the girls heard clawing coming from within Cindy's bedroom walls, which they described as sounding like something trying to be set free. The incident resulted in Nancy running from the house, but Cindy continued to experiment with the Ouija board. Soon after, her friends started to notice a big change in Cindy as she had lost her normally big appetite and she had become gaunt and dull-eyed. Even her teachers became concerned, as did her parents, who on several occasions heard strange voices coming from Cindy's bedroom. When her mother discovered the Ouija board and tried to take it, Cindy became aggressive and grasped her arm with a strong hand, and she later reported feeling afraid of her own daughter. As things escalated, the clawing sound was heard throughout the whole house. Cindy quit school and became a virtual stranger to her family. She eventually became violent, at one point attacking her father and slamming his head into a wall. After this, Cindy was hospitalized and the Warrens were called in. The climax of the case took place at Cindy's hospital bed, and after coming to the conclusion that Cindy was a victim of demonic infestation, the Warrens called in Father Elmy, who noted that Cindy reacted violently to a crucifix. Then, over the next 18 hours, the priest conducted an exorcism. And coming in at number 1 is the Conjuring House. Originally called the Arnold Estate, this house came filled with horrors. In January 1971, the Perrin family, Roger, Carolyn, and their 5 daughters, Andrea, Nancy, Christine, Cindy, and April, moved into a farmhouse. Not long after moving in, the family reportedly experienced all manners of paranormal activity, from apparitions to physical attacks by unseen hands. Now, the most frequent apparition was one of a woman with a broken neck who came to be popularized as Bathsheba Sherman. Now, it turns out that there actually was a real person named Bathsheba Sherman who lived on the parents' property in the mid-1800s. She was rumored to be a Satanist, and there was evidence that she had been involved in the death of a neighborhood child, though no trial ever took place. Now, the parents believed that it was Bathsheba's spirit that was tormenting them. Paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine inserted themselves into the family's alleged experiences, making the case famous via their lectures and eventually the Conjuring film. Now, the Perron family claimed that paranormal experiences went on for almost 10 years until the family had abandoned the house in 1980.
At number 10 is the Buddhist exorcism. Ed and Lorraine Warren didn't limit themselves to American spooks. They wanted to explore all kinds of ghosts and demons from around the world. Think about it, there are so many regional monsters waiting to be discovered. It's not just about battling your everyday demons. See, they took on the Oni and Yoaki. So they jetted off to Japan to investigate these eerie tunnels where people met their end. Ed, who knew Japan from his Navy days during WW2, was keen to dive into their culture and mysteries, but it was no vacation. They were called to help Teresa, a young woman plagued by multiple demons. Buddhist exorcism was the name of the game here, a stark contrast to their usual Catholic connection. In the footage, Lorraine's trying her best to cast out the evil. It's not easy to watch someone in such torment, but the experts were on hand, and Lorraine had high praise for the Buddhist team, saying that they were cut from a different cloth. At number 9 is the Satanic Idol. Ed and Lorraine Warren had their share of spooky encounters, and here's one you might not have heard of because the Warrens aren't too keen on bringing it up. A satanic idol and a human skull, both found in their collection. Imagine owning something like that. The skull was given to them as a gift, and while it's a bizarre present, it fits their unusual line of work. Now let's talk about the idol. It's an eerie, tall, slender thing, and even though it doesn't scream Satan at first glance, it gives off some seriously creepy vibes. A local hunter stumbled upon it in the woods along with the skull, and that's where the story takes a mysterious twist. See, the hunter claims he was later approached by a man in black and urged him to leave that stuff behind. Spooked and not knowing what to do, he took it to the Warrens, who must have thought it was a great addition to their collection. However, things took a dark turn. See, Lorraine fell seriously ill after they brought the idol home, and Ed believed it was linked to their new acquisition. She eventually recovered, but the details of how they purified or cleansed the idol remain a mystery. It's now part of their haunted relics collection, waiting for Hollywood to come knocking. Maybe it'll star in a horror movie soon. If you're enjoying the video so far, you can support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing, and ringing that notification bell. It's free! Clara Germana cell possession, or Clara Germana Kell possession. I don't know. Imagine being a perfectly ordinary teenager and suddenly you're speaking languages you've never even heard before, exhibiting superhuman strength, and reacting violently to religious symbols. It's like something straight out of a horror movie. But this was no horror movie, it was the real-life ordeal. In 1996, this South American girl had the whole town spooked. She was sent to a Roman Catholic mission school, and that's when all the weirdness began. Clara began speaking language she had no business knowing, like Polish, German, and French. It's her father, Erasmus Horner, the local Catholic priest, who must have had nerves of steel. He came to investigate, and after witnessing Clara's terrifying behavior, he was convinced that she was under the influence of something truly malevolent. The priest and his team embarked on a series of exorcisms, battling whatever had taken a hold of Clara. It's a story that'll send shivers down your spine and make you think twice about what might be lurking in the shadows. In the shadows. At number 7, Cindy McBain, just your typical teenager, stumbles upon an old beat-up Ouija board in a peculiar shop. $5 later, and she's got a ticket to the unknown. As she and her friend Nancy dabble with the board, with unearthly clawing noises from within their bedroom walls. Nancy bolts out of there, but Cindy decides to push further, and that's when things go awry. She begins to change, and not in a good way. Her appetite disappears, she starts looking like a ghost herself. Even her parents and teachers are getting worried, hearing eerie voices and noticing her deteriorating condition. When her mom tries to snatch that Ouija board away, Cindy's grip becomes stronger than you'd expect from a little person, and she transforms into an entirely different person. Violence erupts, with her dad becoming a victim of her aggression, and that's when the Warrens get the call. Fast forward to Sydney's hospital room, where Father Emili makes a shocking discovery. Sydney goes berserk at the sight of a crucifix. So an 18-hour exorcism unfolds, concluding in a terrifying tale of demonic possession the Warrens kept tucked away. If this one doesn't give you goosebumps, I don't know what will. At number 6 is the Wax Man. Now, the Wax Man, as they call him, is a figure shrouded in mystery right out of Cincinnati, Ohio. Every night, like clockwork at 11:30 p.m., he steps out of his house and embarks on a peculiar journey to a junkyard. Now, why the nickname Waxman, you ask? It's because of his face, or at least what people catch a glimpse of, which seems eerily waxy. But here's where it gets even spookier. See, people stake out his streak, and when he sets off, they start tailing him. What's even more bizarre is the Waxman's supposed mastery of timing the traffic lights. Why, you might wonder? Well, to give slip to those intrepid followers, of course. He's well aware when someone's on his tail, and he's not too shy about throwing them off his scent. He'll play with his speed, darting ahead or slowing down abruptly just to mess with his followers. And if you're daring enough to pull up alongside him, you might get a fleeting glance or maybe even a wave, but don't hold your breath for that. Now, there's one eerie story of a carload of students who tailed the Waxman all the way to that junkyard. And guess what? They never spoke about what they witnessed there. Let's not make a habit of tailing mysterious folks in their cars, especially a guy like Waxman. Seriously, it's just like asking for trouble. And number 5 is the Amityville Horror hoax. The Amityville Horror, a chilling case linked to the Warrens, became a sensation before the Conjuring franchise. The Lutz family alleged finding a demonic footprint in the snow, but weather records don't back that up. No snowfall then. The book and film mention police involvement, but records beg to differ. You see, to make things even murkier, Reynold Defoe's attorney, William Weber, suggests it was all a colossal hoax. He claimed the Lutz family, writer Jay Anson, and the Warrens concocted the story. It's not the first time the Warrens appear more interested in a captivating narrative than cold, hard facts. The case of the haunting in Connecticut, penned as non-fiction, had a writer hired by them, and he struggled with conflicting accounts. Questioned Ed Warren, their response was unsettling. They're crazy. All the people who come to us are crazy. Just use what you can and make the rest up. It's a bizarre twist of the tale that still haunts us to this day. At number 4 is the South End Werewolf. A tale from the paranormal files of Ed and Lorraine Warren stands as one of their most peculiar cases. Imagine, if you will, a carpenter named William Ramsay living in Essex, England, who believed he cursed with lycanthropy, not the Hollywood-style transformation under the full moon, but the seemingly random shift into a beast. Ramsay described his first transformation as a nightmarish experience of icy chills, primal urges, and an overpowering odor. He transformed into a werewolf-like creature, threatening a fence post and gnawing at wire mesh. For years, he dismissed it as an isolated incident, but in 1983, the wolf reared its snarling head again at a pub, leading to a wild cab ride home. In 1989, the Warrens intervened, inviting Ramsay to Connecticut for an exorcism. He was initially skeptical, despite believing in becoming a werewolf. The exorcism, a night of violent thrashing, supposedly purged the werewolf from his soul, bringing him peace. A silver bullet might be Hollywood's way, but it seems that for Ed and Lorraine Warren, exorcism was the remedy of choice for this strange case. At number 3, the shadow doll is next level terrifying. You've all seen Chucky, right? Well, this doll makes Chucky look like a birthday party guest. It's a horrifying sight. A woman with a white face, swathed in black robes, adorned with chains and spikes, even sporting a human tooth. It's not out for your physical body, it's after your dreams. When you hit the hay, this grotesque creature invades your slumber. It doesn't just give you a quick stare. Oh no, it's sadistic. It haunts your dreams relentlessly, returning again and again, pushing you to the brink of sheer terror until your heart says, "I'm out!" and you never wake up again. Imagine being so afraid to sleep, knowing that the moment you close your eyes, the shadow doll could strike, and it might be your last night. The Warrens have locked it up, but honestly, it's too dangerous. Burn it and be done with it. At number 2, let's dive into the spooky world of the Winchester Mystery House, a place so mysterious that even renowned paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren kept their distance. The story begins in '86 when Sarah Winchester, a wealthy widow, headed to California to escape her troubled past. You see, she inherited a vast fortune from the Winchester rifle empire, but it came with a dark legacy. After losing her family inheriting a fortune from the Winchester rifle, she embarked on a lifelong quest to build a house that never seemed to be finished building. Its twisted hallways, doors leading to nowhere, and staircases to the ceiling give us an architectural puzzle. But why did Sarah Winchester create such a bizarre mansion? Rumors suggest she built it to appease the vengeful spirits of those eliminated by the Winchester rifle. Ed and Lorraine Warren, known for delving into some seriously scary stuff, never ventured to this peculiar place. Imagine that. A mansion designed to appease the restless dead, and the Warrens wanted nothing to do with it. At number 1 is the Brick. Inside the Warrens Museum, nestled among the spine-chilling artifacts, there lies a seemingly ordinary relic. A brick. Yeah, just your run-of-the-mill building block. or so it seems. But within the context of this occult museum, anything is far from mundane. You see, this brick hails from the infamous Borley Rectory, a place renowned for being the most haunted structure in all of the UK before its fiery demise in 1939. On that fateful night, chaos reigned supreme, with over 2,000 reports of paranormal occurrences, including floating bricks seemingly possessed by poltergeists. This peculiar brick might just be the most terrifying piece of masonry in history. Not that there's an extensive list of terrifying bricks to compare it to, but it stands as a chilling testament to the unexplained and eerie events that have gripped the world, reminding us that even the most ordinary objects can harbor extraordinary secrets.
In our number 10 spot, we have the table throwing demon. Okay, here's some crazy footage for you of a possible real life demon. I mean, heck, the Bible has warned us that demons are tricky and they play with us and influence us and make us feel fear. Well, that is seemingly exactly what happens in the video I'm about to show you. Here we have a woman who is sitting in what looks like a banquet hall, and she's on her cell phone when she hears a chair move. She turns around and sees nothing, but then the chair beside her moves and she freaks out and falls on the floor. Then a bunch of chairs and tables begin to move and you see her get so frightened that she tries to stand up and then she falls on the floor again. She could have fainted too, it's kind of unclear. The footage is so wild and it's so clear that this woman isn't an actress and that this isn't edited footage. It's too natural, and I mean, if she is, then man, she deserves an Oscar. If you're liking this video, don't forget to give it a like, as it will really help us out. In our number 9 spot, we have Satan. Well, duh, if there was going to be one demon on this list that we all know about, obviously it was going to be Satan himself. Satan was once a guardian cherub, but God found wickedness within him, or so is said in Ezekiel 28:12-15. Luke has also mentioned that Jesus saw Satan fall from heaven like a lightning bolt, and that is how he gained the name of fallen angel. Something that I didn't know until this video though is that apparently Satan does not rule over hell, but is punished and just imprisoned with the other souls in hell. That's interesting. From my understanding, Satan is the king and creator of demons, and these demons have influence and infiltrate society and cause sadness and havoc. So basically, we're living amongst many demons these days. Everywhere you look, everything you hear or read, there's some kind of messaging that hits an emotional chord that makes you feel understood. But then you'll hear something else that is a conflicting perspective, and you also feel understood from that. And the result is that you're left confused, and you feel pulled in many directions, and you will feel vulnerable, and that's when it will be easy to control you. Beware of the influential demons like Satan. In our number 8 spot, we have the shapeshifters. Guys, I'm a little shocked that the Bible subtly points to shapeshifters. I guess I just assumed that this was a modern day conspiracy theory fueled by the Marvel movies, but no, there is evidence to suggest that shapeshifters have been around and spoken about since before the Bible. Mark said, after these things, he appeared in another form to 2 of them as they were walking into the country. He appeared in another form to 2 of them as they were walking into the country. That's it, they exist. I'm a believer. Also, what's the consensus? Should we just now conclude that Obama's security guard is indeed a shapeshifter? I feel like yes. Who's a believer? Let me know in the comment section below. In our number 7 spot, we have the chair moving demon. Okay, this could be just a ghost or a demon. I mean, who knows? In this clip, you see a girl in perhaps a classroom or a common area, as there are computers and lounge chairs, and she seems to be looking at something when suddenly she runs out of the room. Then a few moments later, you see the lounge chair move and the door close. The ghost/demon is having a meeting, so he wanted his privacy, guys. The devil requires privacy. Okay, but seriously, what is this? How is this footage not more mainstream? I'm scared. I hope somebody called a priest after witnessing this footage. This place definitely needs to be cleansed. In fact, we should get the priests of the world to just cleanse the world. We may just need a general world cleansing, because clearly the demons are among us, judging by this video. I'm scared. I want my mom. In our number 6 spot, we have the reptile people. Okay guys, we know that there are many references to reptiles in the Bible. I mean, if you don't, then I'm here to tell you that indeed there are. In fact, the Bible starts with Adam and Eve is persuaded by the snake to eat the forbidden fruit. So the stories really begin right away. But there have been evidence of people believing in the reptile people for many centuries, even dating back to ancient Mesopotamia, where they created an artifact called the Ubaid lizard man, which has made people believe that it is possible that they worshipped lizard people, the reptiles. In Revelation 12-9, it is said, quote, "And the great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent, who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him." The serpent was thrown down to earth, eh? Sounds a lot like a reptile person confirmation to me. Now, whether or not they are demons, that is the question. There have been way too many reptile Hollywood sightings to count, so beware, folks. In our number 5 spot, we have the lawless one. In the Bible, 2 Thessalonians 2:9, I might have pronounced that wrong, sorry, it's been a while since I've been to church. Thessalonians 2:9, we are warned about the lawless one who is doing the work of Satan, aka a demon. The coming of the lawless one is by the activity of Satan with all power and false signs and wonders. Who exactly this message is referring to? I mean, it could be any number of people in history that promised wonders and things that they could not keep. Historical political leaders that may have tricked the masses. I mean, there have been many, from Genghis Khan to presidents in this day and age. So who's to say who this verse is speaking about, but perhaps at this point this benevolent demon has reincarnated many times over, considering the Bible stories are from thousands of years ago. In our number 4 spot, we have the man that couldn't speak. Demons are spoken about so much in the Bible, and on many accounts, stories are told where it is believed that people have come across these demons. Mark speaks about a demon that made someone's son unable to speak. This demon caused its victim to have epileptic-like seizures, in which he was at times thrown down to wallow on the ground and made to foam at the mouth. No one was able to get rid of this demon but Jesus, after saying to the spirit, "Deaf and dumb spirit, I command you, come out of him and enter him no more." This has led a lot of people over the thousands of years to believe that mental illness is really just demonic possession. Obviously, we know better now about what mental illness is, but you may be surprised to hear that there are still a lot of people that believe that multiple personality disorder is demonic possession. In our number 3 spot, we have the parking lot demon. Years ago, a news station in Serbia called Channel 4 reported the wildest story. Apparently, a woman was in a parking lot when suddenly something invisible started chasing her, and whatever it was jumped from one lamp post to the other. She was so frightened that she went to the police to report that a maniac was chasing her. The police took a look at the footage and couldn't believe what they saw. It looked to be a transparent human running back and forth. Some believe it to be someone from another universe glitching into ours, but the woman swears that it was chasing her, so some believe that it was a demon. It's so crazy to see, and I read that the Bible warned us about a spirit called Abaddon, whom is the leader of the demons, and honestly, this could very well be proof of one of the Abaddon demons, as this woman was definitely terrorized by something.